Hi there, I'm Bonnie Log Cabin Stitcher. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my sewing room. I'm so glad that you could come to visit with me. And when I do these videos, that's exactly what I'm thinking when I'm sharing, is that it's just with someone that I wanted to show things to that I'm working on or share things with that someone has asked me questions. And I am finding those are the videos that I'm very attracted to right now because I have so much on my mind and a lot of heavy things that I'm working through. So I want things that are easy, slow paced, lighthearted, and bring me joy. And that's the one of the main reasons that I want to do these videos are both to bring joy and peace to a very fast-paced world, and also to share the love that I have for my Jesus. And so that's that's why I'm doing these. And I've had so many people that appreciate that I share about my issues. I have a lot of issues, and that's why I do a lot of stitching. And I think that's why you guys do a lot of stitching as well, because it just helps me feel peaceful and happy. And I have been getting more and more into the world of slow stitching. So if you just Google slow stitching, or you go on YouTube slow stitching, or Pinterest, which is my favorite, slow stitching, those you will find so many different people. And I have found someone that I'm really enjoying. Her name is Jeri Bellini, or Jeri Bellini. I'm always mispronouncing her name. I'll put a link to her YouTube below. And I am fascinated with just other people that are enjoying doing the same concept of things, not the same kind of stitching, but the same concepts, which are just stitching for peace and slowing down, not hurried. And I also am enjoying answering questions. So I'm not ever consistent with anything. That's the one thing in my life. I'm consistent at being inconsistent. So I'm answering questions as much as I can in the comments, and then a lot of times I'll say I'll share that on the next video. Well, after the last video I posted, I had a page of just things that I was going to mention on the next video. And then I went to find that notebook, and I can't find that notebook, but I had things piled up. So hopefully I will be answering those questions. Now, for a long time, I had done a lot of YouTube videos, or not YouTube, floss tube videos, which is primarily cross stitch. I adore cross stitch. I have lots of cross stitch right next to me. I have tons of projects to work on. But when we were in transition of moving from California to Colorado, we spent a year and a half full time in our little log cabin. It was a very small space, and I had most everything in storage for at least a year. And so cross stitching was marvelous. I had all my, not all of them, the majority of my cross stitch bags. I had all my flosses, and I could do all those things because it's very small space, and we were in a very small cabin, 525 square feet. And then now I've got this ginormous sewing room, like the sewing room of my dreams. Although I could always think it could be bigger. It could be bigger. And when my husband and I were looking at the house before we got to move in, it was a long transition. Even after we bought it, it took 5 months for us to be able to move in. But I was doing measurements, and my husband's like, why bother? You could land a plane in this room. You can get everything you want in this room. And I'm like, I don't think so. So there are still things that I can't get in this room, but I got in the walk-in closet. So it's amazing, and I love it. But that's where I'm fascinated with quilting right now, because I've got all my fabrics out, and I'm getting things more and more and more organized. And there's some things that I'm finding out about myself that I've been knowing for a while, but one of them is with a lot of anxiety in my life, and I'm very distractible, that it really helps to have a clear space. So before I did my last quilting video, I had tons of stuff here and here, and I just threw it all in my closet so I could do the video. Well, when and we had done a transition. There's so much in our life, but we had gone back to California right after I did that video. We stayed in our little tiny log cabin, maybe for the last time. It is on the market right now. And for those of you that have followed me all along in my videos that I did, I started them in 2020. I adore our log cabin, but it doesn't have a place in our life anymore. And that's, I hate, those little quotes, but that's what I have to keep thinking, is it does not have a place in our life anymore as we live in Colorado. And so it is on the market. And at the moment, I will put the MLS listing in the show notes so that those of you who haven't seen it, because I mentioned that on a previous video, you can see it, because it always is very emotional when we're there that I couldn't put it together to do a video. And then in November, several trips ago, we brought everything from the cabin, and so it was just staged. And one of the pictures of the front room is virtually staged. But some of the furniture, this had been there as a kitchen table at one time. This was there as a perfect bathroom cupboard. And then this time I have it turned, and there's a dresser over there with a mirror. I don't know if you can see it or not, but in the last video you could see it. And that we had to run to or we didn't have to. When we knew we were gonna be living up there full time before we sold our house, I'm like, where am I? Usually I just had a suitcase that I would have my clothes in. So we went to this fun antique store, found for $250, found this marvelous antique dresser, and that's what I used up at the cabin. It was even kind of too big. And then we brought it here. So a lot of the furniture that I have in here was actually from the cabin. So the cabin is like stripped of anything special right now, except for what it is, which are the logs and the beautiful kitchen we put in right before we left. So the things that I want to share with you, I've had so many people asking about the quilts that I have in my backdrop. That one I'm going to try to remember. I'm going to pull that down at the end, but I didn't want it just naked right now. So I've replaced this one. I have that on the bed, the green and white one. What usually you would see in the backdrop of my floss tube video, I have it facing where I'm facing that, or you're facing that way. I took that quilt down, and so when I took the quilts off the wall, whoo, all of a sudden the room was big. It was like I could land a plane in here. But I love brown and I love dark, and so I get to share those things with you. And I always love to do these, like I said, as if you were visiting with me. And I am finding the people that I can listen to for longer at a time are those that are talking slower. I don't always talk slow, and that aren't showing one thing after another that's triggering me to buy. So I was talking to my husband earlier today, and we were talking. I had just watched a Joshua Becker video either this morning or last night. And he is one that really helped me get into the concept of minimalism and decluttering. I am not a minimalist. I am what I call a simplest. And so I like to live a simple lifestyle, but I have a lot of stuff, but it's special to me. So for my birthday, I had a birthday a couple days ago, and I had ordered, my husband loves when I order my own gifts. I had ordered a bunch of I didn't bring it out with me, but they're just the Iris brand scrapbooking boxes. And I already had quite a few, but I made a mistake because I was all excited. My friend said it's Amazon Prime Day. Anyway, I had seen some stuff that was sitting in my cart and it was cheaper. So I didn't realize instead of a set of 6 boxes, I ordered 2 of them. And my husband was unpacking the boxes for me as I was doing something else. And he said, wow, there's tons of boxes. It's like Christmas. I said, oh, I ordered several things for my birthday. He's like, wow. And so he kept bringing stuff in as he was unpacking them out of the boxes. And he's like, oh my gosh, there's a pile of boxes. And I said, there should only be 6. He goes, oh no, there's more than 6. So it was amazing. I just thought, oh my gosh, you know, they're already unpacked. I can't return them. He's like, we'll use them. Anyway, I used all those and I could have used more, but it made my wonder closet, my walk-in closet, amazing. And I will eventually do a studio. I'm crossing my legs, so I'm going to end up falling. I will eventually do a studio tour. It's almost done, but I just want to refine some things. But I do love plastic boxes, and I have plastic boxes that I bought when we first started. My son is 32. We started homeschooling when he was maybe 8 or 9. Anyway, I had a bunch of plastic boxes that I used to organize at that time, and I still use those. So plastic boxes last a long time, and they're very versatile, and you can see what's inside of them. So the reason I wanted to leave this here is because even though I am finding I love having an orderly space, that really helps me stay calm because I spend a lot of time in here, and it helps me when I just want to create. I've got, like, you are sitting on my mom's quilting desk, and I love to keep that mostly clear so that way I could just lay something out and play with something. And then sometimes I'll use the floor, and it really helps if there's space. But I was working on a project, and there's a bunch of boxes because that was the very end. I almost cleared out my whole closet, but there's all these little things. So I just threw them all in a box, and they're actually sitting there to remind me. Plus, I was having so much fun tea dyeing some of my things. So let me show you what I've got. So I have been, so one day it was beautiful and sunny, and I was able to do, actually it was coffee dyeing. Sometimes I do tea dyeing, sometimes coffee dyeing, but look at all this stuff. So I have, like, I had spools of things, and look at, they're all coffee dyed. They're all of the more primitive look that I love. Most things were not dark enough, and so some things I think I just had thrown in here because I didn't put it away, but I thought, let's just dip that in coffee. And some things I did 2 or 3 times to get it darker and darker and darker. So I shared on, I don't know, my last video, the last 2 have been quilting, that these are the things that I'm doing. I'm getting these, here they are. These are coffee dyed, so they were more white, and I don't think I have any that are not coffee dyed. And I am doing the whole matchy kind of a thing. So I'm decorating them like this. So Hobby Lobby has a ton of these, and they're only a few dollars. Like even this bigger one, I think was probably only $5. Now, if it gets wet, like if I go, it rains a lot here, which is why it's green. And if I get water spots on there, they're gonna show, but it's gonna get more primitive, and that's okay. But I have all of these things, but it took hours between getting them dyed. So this is, and these are, I think, $1.50. And then this is great for threads, like spools of thread. And then I had said on the last video that not all the zippers worked well. So this was one that I got that I was going to do this really cool project on. But look at this, the zipper is wonky. So the zipper is polyester. This is cotton. And so this didn't shrink, but this did. So that was where I must have done hot water with the coffee. This was last time. So this time I made sure that the water was cold, so there should be less shrinkage. But that's what's going on in the background. It's just, I think a sewing room or any studio or a place of creativity. When we were first married, we were living in this little tiny, darling mother-in-law's cottage. It was so small. We took off interior doors. We only left the bathroom door on and the front door and the back door, but like the kitchen door and the bedroom door, we took off because we couldn't have any furniture in there. And I used my kitchen table. My husband, he was so fun. We were painting. We would paint things. It was like ceramic kind of things. And we would just use our kitchen table, which was a card table. And that was our creative space, mostly mine, but he did that too. So any place is a creative space. And any place tends to get messy because you're working with stuff all the time. So I wanted to leave that there to show you that, yep, even though I'm working on getting this orderly and finding that that works best for my peace of mind, it's always going to be a mess because there's always something I'm working on. So let's show you. I'm going to answer questions because I've got things piled here. People have asked questions about batting, washing, all kinds of stuff. So all that's here, and I always do longer videos. So, and I always say, take me in batches, you know, if you can deal with 15 minutes at a time, do that. But I get everything out and I get myself geared up for this. And then I've got all this stuff. So I do tend to do longer ones, and that's just my style. And that's how I think that's how I'm doing these right now. But I have so much to share. But I need to let you know too, like I read the comments always as they come up. And then I take the time and I sit and I answer them. And usually I'm sitting at my desk, and right now my left leg keeps wanting to fall asleep when I'm sitting at the desk too long. So I have to get a more comfortable chair. But also I have all kinds of anxiety. So I have social anxiety, and I get overwhelmed easily. So I don't always check my social media things because I do what I call hide and stitch. So I have not checked my emails month or two, and I haven't been on Instagram, and I wish I could keep up with that, but I think this is as good as I can get right now, in that I can push play when I feel brave enough to do these, and then other times I just hunker down and I just do my thing. Plus, we've been very social in a new community. We're doing all kinds of social things, which is fun, but when you have social anxiety, it wears you down and you have to gear back up by being alone. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so the quilts and the backdrop. Now, if I don't get to this one, I'll share it on another video because I just put that up to talk about the thing that was there. So this is the one that's usually there. And I did a quilting video when I was in California, and it was all about paper piecing, and all my thoughts about it, and also a lot about this one. So this is the quilt that's usually in my backdrop. And it had a very emotional story because my mother started it, and then in her Alzheimer's, she couldn't finish it. She gave it to me. And that was a way, when I was stitching on it, it was a way that I was processing a lot of my grief, and there was a lot of grief. But this is a very precious quilt to me. And when we were living at the cabin, when I packed up my sewing room, I put this where I could take it with me because I needed to hand quilt it. So it's all hand quilted now, and I would have liked to do the binding darker, but I didn't have my fabrics with me at the time. And so that's just the way it is. But what is this one? And again, if you want to know all about the story behind it, I'll link the video that's in below. But generally, what I used to do was I would do a thumbnail with the main project that I was going to talk about in that picture. Lately, I haven't even taken the time to do that. So this is, and these are some plastic boxes. I have 4 of these bigger ones that fit in a cupboard, but most of the other Iris ones, and these are Iris. Iris is just a strong, don't fall, stronger plastic and thicker than some of the other ones. So let's see if I will not knock you over. And this is the foundation paper piecing, and this is what it is. So I bought this quite a while ago because I was going to do that, a king size quilt, but this is Foundation by the Yard. I'm assuming they still sell it, but it's the uneven log cabin. And I have had questions about people getting inspired to do the log cabin block and wanting to know more about it. So there's three main types, four, of log cabin blocks. And one of them is the uneven log cabin block. So you can see if I show this to you again, and you don't have to do it foundation paper piece. I just find it's very easy to be precise, where half of the block, even though it takes up more space than half of the block is larger, half of the block is smaller, but it always starts out, the one thing about the log cabin, it starts out with one center block, and then you build next to it, and then you just concentrically, bigger or longer, longer, longer. And so it just keeps going around. And because this one is uneven, it really helps to do it with the foundation. But the center part was from this book. There's going to be so many older patterns that I show because I started quilting, I think, in 2006. This was a book I had borrowed from my sister, and then she gave it to me. But this is that centerpiece. So this is still available. Now, a lot of the older books you can get, and I'll look on Amazon, and then I always look for used. Then there's Abe books, ABE books, thrift books. There's a new Kim Diehl, or not, it's a Kim Diehl book that's new for me that I got for $6.50 on Abe Books, and it was free shipping. So this is probably still available, but I am really wanting to encourage people to just see what they have and see how I can inspire you, not to necessarily, unless you feel like it, to not make it where you're feeling pressured that you have to go out and buy that particular pattern. If you have a lot of stuff like I do, I really am trying to see what I have that gets that goal of what I want to do. So that's where, as I'm doing stuff, sometimes I'll just see what do I have, like the binding of that. I wanted to do a darker one. I had lights, I had enough, and that's what I did, and it's good enough. And if you're okay with that, I think that's a good thing. My sister and I were talking about, we just want to finish projects. She had a bunch of UFOs that she's finishing because she's making her quilting room. She's more of the watercolor artist now. So she wants to clear out stuff, finish stuff. She's given me a lot of fabrics, passed on a lot of fabrics, and just finished projects that are mostly started. And we were both talking and saying how much better it is to get it finished than perfect. And that's a big saying all around, but it feels good. So even if you don't have that right fabric, find out what you have that's close enough and see, doesn't it feel better to just finish it? So that's one thing that I'm encouraging. Now, here is one that, and I don't know how many times I say this, one of my favorite quilts, but I do love having this up on my wall and looking at it every day. So this is usually on the back wall when I do my floss tube videos. And then look at the back. I had a thing when I first quilted that I didn't want to piece any backs. Well, look at this. Isn't that fun? I pieced the back and I made it work. And it's actually, when I'll show it to people, they're like, oh, let me see the back. It is more interesting. So I had just bought a bag of scraps at a quilt store one time. And that's where a lot of these are, just the bag of scraps. Now, this one, when I talk about hand quilting and what you can do, so this, isn't this cool? So this, with the light shining, you can kind of see. You can see the lines of the hand quilting, but it's also the fabric I chose. And my husband really helped me see, because I was trying to use what I had. And I was showing him, and I was like, I don't know if this is quite the right color. He goes, but look at the design. It's just like a pineapple. And so that made it very fun and then very easy to follow the pattern. And then these were just like this. That was from my sister. My sister knows I am very scrappy, and she will do a quilt and just save me the scraps sometimes. So this is also from Ginger. So love that piece. And sometimes she'll just give me, or people will just give me pieces this big, and it's marvelous. Very fun. These were pieces that I'm sure were from that bag that I bought of scraps. So this is, where's my Riley? There's my Riley. Let's see if I can do this without knocking you. Oh, there's the book I was looking for. And I needed to get this video done today because I've had all this stuff sitting on my table forever. That quilt is from this book, which I'm sure you're going to be able to find, hopefully just for a couple dollars. And look at, you can see I did it almost exactly just like that pattern. So, Simple Comforts, Kim Diehl. Okay, so now we're very opposite of where I did that quilt almost exactly from the pattern. I seem to be doing things either exactly like the pattern or whoa, I change it up a lot. So this is the quilt that is also behind me. I got quilts all over my wall in my floss tube videos, but you can't see it very clearly. So let's see if I can help you see it very well. I don't really have to work with the light so much in this room as I did in my last room, but it is a very fun quilt. And I used to do more of these gold colors, and I don't know, you just kind of change, but I wanted you to see the stitching. So I did a lot of fun because I did a lot of fun stitching on this quilt, and I was doing embroidery. Then I got into quilting, and then I got back, or kind of like I got back into embroidery because my sister and I did all this growing up. My mom and my grandma taught us. I got back into embroidery like 2000, then back into quilting in 2006, and then back into cross stitch in 2020. And so these are just, so I had really been into the embroidery and the stitching when I was working on this quilt. So you can see I got in all the embroidery that I could. This was my original way that I used to do applique, which was flat and with the whip stitch, which was just with embroidery floss. These are paper pieced. So I will show you how different this quilt is from the pattern and embroidery down there. So hopefully, because I don't think I've ever shown this quilt before, but this was one of my very first quilts that I did, and it took me a couple years to finish it. But let's put that down there and see if I can show you. Now, this is the pattern, so you can see how very, very different it is. So I take different patterns because I have so many patterns, and I will take different patterns and put things together. So look at this. So look at that house. Wasn't the house that I wanted to do, but look at the tree. The tree is the same. But then this should still be available. Brenda Gervais has Country Stitches Online. So that's her store, her website store that she closes sometimes and then opens up. So she'll always open it back up, but she has her old patterns. I have a lot that look like this because this was in early 2000s. This is what her patterns looked like. But what house is that one? Let me see. That house, okay, so it's plaid, but it has the fireplace and the pot. So it is that one. But I just didn't do the flag. So very fun. And of course I had planned on doing the one that would look like a log cabin and never got it done. And I was thinking, gosh, if we sold the cabin, I never want anything to do with log cabins again. But obviously I have a lot of log cabin stuff because we had that log cabin since 1990. And it's very precious to us still. And so, but I'm mostly 97% okay with selling it. But I will always just keep the log cabin stuff. I think. So you can see a lot of the components I changed, yet that I kept the same. I didn't know how to make these, and I don't think they showed very well. And I just kind of figured it out, but I did not keep those points. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And now I know there's enough tutorials that I could have learned. I could learn how to do it now, but this is just, and the one thing I did not do here is I didn't know, because I was so new with quilting, I didn't know about trimming. Like if I had made this as a 4-patch, trim, 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 because look at the end, I had to trim it shorter. But it's just life, and that's, you're not gonna learn without doing something and just being okay if it's not perfect, or pass it on, give it away, get rid of it, throw it away if you don't like it. So so those are the two patterns primarily that I worked with. And then these, so the paper piecing. So these blocks I paper pieced, and these blocks I paper pieced. This was all fabric from my mom and my sister. I think all of these, my mom and my sister as well. So these and these were from another book. Look at this, there it is. So see those blocks right there? That's what it is. So that's where it's like, don't worry if you can't, if you want to make these and you can't find them, you'll find something close enough. Now, if this book you want, there's not very many available because this is a pretty old book. Now, I got my mother's and I keep it in a bag because it was well used. But if you want this book, you might want to pause and check, because sometimes you can get them for a couple dollars. So book 3, Backwoods Retreat, Paper Pieced Projects. So this is one that I would say, pause me, check on eBay, check on A-Books. Because when I looked last time, I took a project to my quilt guild, I think in January, and I looked at that time and there was a couple still available. Did those ladies get it? I don't know. But I've done, so my mom made this quilt for me and it hung in our cabin. And it was even up in the cabin during the time of the 2003 huge fires that devastated our community. And we thought our cabin had burnt down. It was a whole week before we went up there, and my husband found that it was still standing. And so it was amazing. But that cabin, or that quilt has a lot of history, but it's here. And then this is, so the Wonky log cabin blocks. So I showed uneven log cabin blocks, and then look at this, Wonky log cabin blocks. You'll see that they're not straight, and it's not because I'm holding it crooked, it's because they're not straight, they're slanted. And it was paper pieced, and I'm pretty sure it's from this book. But you know, I do combine a lot of things, so maybe this was from another book, but it's similar because that looks like the same size as the small one. But this is also the blocks from this book. There's several different blocks in this book. So I made these a long ago. These were going to be at the cabin, and I never had them at the cabin. And I have project bags made out of them, but I had 6, excuse me, and I was practicing my machine quilting. I really have fun, so that's the fun. If I'm going to machine quilt, I like to do funky things. So I was just practicing, overstitched these. But the one benefit is that placemats, when they're heavily quilted, they're kind of stiff and nice. So that's, I'm throwing that away, or not throwing, I'm throwing that over so I can't get back to that. But hopefully you can see, if I can inspire you to look at the patterns that you have, and do you have something that can work with it? Or go on Pinterest, and the one benefit, or even Googling, because everybody has a blog or a website that they have free patterns, and you can just print out paper pieced patterns. I talked all about that and things that you could buy in that one video that I'll link down below with the paper piecing. So one last look at this guy, but this is how I just literally, this wedges up. Oh no, I have two, I'm looking. I do have two nails, two little tiny nails that this sits on, but this literally sits exactly in between that shelf. And I don't think my husband, he made that shelf for me. I don't think he made it to go with this, or maybe he did. It was a long time ago. But anyway, here it is. So hopefully that answers lots of questions and get you some inspiration. But see, this was the kind of applique I did before. It has a fusible web behind it and it's ironed on, it's flat. There's no dimension, but I simply use one, I think it's just one strand of embroidery floss and it's just the whip stitch. And I like it to show, but I also like it, I love playing with colors. So it's always each thread, see that's whip stitched, each one matches the project that I'm doing. See those as well. But that's what I love. I love color and texture. All right, we're done with that one. Now, I wanted to show you something else. So I'm learning as I'm going through these things too. I finally got this baby put together and I've been talking about it in all my videos. And if you are a neat freak, if you don't like lint, this is not going to be the quilt for you because this forever has little things hanging off of it. And I'm always picking them off. But this is fun because it's raw edge. It's the chenille. So in my playlist, like I've always wanted to just help people see, like if you go on someone's channel, like if you click on my video, but if you click on like Log Cabin Stitcher, just click that, you go to my channel. I finally have a banner up and it's the cabin. So that may not stay there forever. So it's there right now because I'm Log Cabin Stitcher, both because I like the Log Cabin block and Log Cabin we still have. And in that picture, you'll see it's in the middle of nowhere. We love it. What was I going to tell you? Oh, then if you click videos, that's when you see it's the most recent to the latest. Because sometimes you'll click on the channel and YouTube just puts up whatever random videos they want to. But if you click videos, it'll refresh recent to latest. Then if you see there's a tab that says playlists, I have a lot of playlists on my channel. So I'll have it, I mean, I have a ton of them and I have a lot of them private so I can just save videos that I want, and some of them public where I have like project bags. Like when I do my floss tube videos, I'm always showing my project bags. Here's another project bag. So I'm always showing my project bags because I enjoy them. But how I learned how to make those, there's a lot of tutorials on there. And the very first one was how I learned how to make my first project bag. Doesn't mean I always do it that size. And I have a lot of videos that tell you all about everything. But now, what I was talking about rag quilts, because I've made several, and I looked on there and there is a rag quilt tutorial. So you can make them any size you want. This one, I was inspired by a quilt, but there was not a specific pattern. But I don't like, a lot of times people will do rag quilts and stitch an X across there. I just personally, all I see, I'm very weird visually. All I see is that X when I'm looking at someone's quilt like that. So my mom did them like that, but it's like, I'm not going to. I always either do them skinny enough that they don't need that X, or I do something on there and that's the quilting. So that's why I do it. But there's, how did I start out telling you about that? So on the playlist, I think that's under, I'll link it and put it in the description box. But look, check out my playlist. I have one now on slow stitching, and that's where I have Jeri Bellini and also K3N and some other people that I'm finding inspiring and putting there. But I had showed before this was washed, I showed all the darling, where's the block that I showed on the last video? I think this was it. This one you could really see. So on this one, you can see the primitive stitching. So I'm all about showing people how to do my style of hand quilting. So you can see this is really close to the edge. It's raw edge, and it frayed up to that point. Now, I probably did it 1/8 of an inch away, and I was looking at my Christmas rag quilt, which I've shown before, and I did it the same way. I had a different washing machine. When we bought this house, it came with a washing machine, and it really messes with the clothes. It doesn't necessarily clean them, it just messes with them. So now, and you have to trim. When I got this, I washed it just one time because I did the shaky, you shake it, you're doing the chenille, you know, so you trim, it's just kind of a mess. I'll share more about that another time. But what I wanted to show you mostly about the stitching is if I was to do this again, I would do it a scant 1/4 inch away. So it had more room on the raw edge to fray, because I was going to wash it a second time. That's generally what I would do, is I shake it after I do all the trimming. And again, if I talk about this, I'll never get done with it, but suffice it to say, some of these, there we go. See, some of these, the stitching is back there and it frayed beyond that point. And so I'm going to have to do some restitching, which is not horrible, but see, that one is fine. So it depends on the fabric, and it depends on where the washing machine was just really messing with this. But it's finished, and it's smaller because I didn't have, this was as many blocks as I could make with the variety to get the fabrics. See, you can see. So I would have liked to have made it longer, but this is a great lap quilt size. So there we go. And then I used 2 different kinds of flannels on the back. They're the same color, but they're different pattern. And I usually just get sale flannel fabrics. And then the center was, I try to always match them, but I do the backing, the center, and the top. So there's 3 layers. It's weighted in the winter, and we have cold winters here, long cold winters. I love the weight because all winter long, I felt like I was never warm unless I was taking a hot shower and drinking tea at the same time. So I'm hoping my body, this will be the 3rd winter of a cold winter, because in California, we don't have cold winters. I can garden, you can garden all year long in California. Not happening here. So that's just to catch up on other, okay, so it's 43 minutes and I've shown you quite a few things. Now, prepare yourself for a shock. Okay, this is generally, like, even if this is the first video, if this is the first video you're watching and you're this far in, congratulations. You have mastered hanging with me. But these are my colors, brown, oh, my hair used to be brown, but as I was cleaning my room and organizing, and I had made a list of my unfinished projects and my finished projects, and I was disgusted at how many unfinished projects I have. And I was like touching everything again. I have a bunch of fabrics under this bed, and I was pulling things out, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have so many unfinished projects. Well, one of them were these fun orange peels. And that's not unusual for me, but when I was in California, I was part of the Night Owl Quilt Guilds in Rancho Cucamonga. Almost all my friends there did brights. And then we had workshops, either a teacher workshop or just another member workshop. And my little friends, or that's how I wanted to make more friends. So I went to these classes and hung out with these ladies. and we talked and I made friends. So if you don't have any friends, go to a class and talk. Anyway, they all did brights, and I thought, well, surely this would be good because I want to keep my brain learning. And so I bought several bright jelly rolls, Kaffe Fassette, and Grunge, and Bella Solids. I'm not really into Bella Solids even now, but I thought I am going to try to do this. And it was fun for a while. One class I took, I ended up just throwing that project away because I thought it was great fun to take it. I learned stuff, but it's like, I'm not even going to finish it. And then another, I thought, okay, I've got all these jelly rolls and orange peels. So I'm like freaking out so much at the quilt I'm going to show you. Orange peels. So that's great because you could do it with a jelly roll. Anyway, I had all these orange peels, and then a friend of mine, I was teaching her how to hand applique, and she appliqued on some of them. So it's really fun, but I thought, let me just finish this quilt up and I'll get rid of it. And as I laid it out, I thought, oh my gosh, I love it. And my husband came in and he was sitting at the chair, and I said, look over there, because I had it laid out right there. He was like, wow. He said, that's really different. But he said, that's really cool. And I said, I know, I am strangely attracted to it. So there you go. Prepare yourself. Put your coffee down if you're drinking something hot, because this is a shocker. It shocks me looking at it, but I'm like strangely attracted to it. So here we go. Ah! Look at that. Is that wild? And then look at this. I had a whole lot. I had 3 jelly rolls of this fabric. So I went to my local fabric store, and I thought, surely they'll carry, because they're brights, surely they'll carry Kaffe Fassette, and I can find just one really pretty print. Nope. And I thought, well, I'll make my own fabric. So I did. These were just jelly strips. I picked out my favorites, put them all together. And there we go. And then it took forever because I didn't want the seams overlapping. So it would have been really easy to iron with all the seams going one way. But I'm going to be I always do this, hand quilting. And so I needed to have the seams open. That took a long time, but it worked. So I am going to be, so now, knowing that I'm getting more into the slow stitching movement, and pinning Pinterest is free, so I have all these pins of slow stitching, and there's lots of different stitches that you can do. And then I have some threads that I'll show you that I had bought, because remember, I'm addicted to color and texture. Anyway, I'm starting to work on this, and this is what I'm doing. So this is how I pin based. I just sat on the floor and I pin based, and so I had a very white batting, and so I made sure I used the white one. But I pin based, and then as I stitch around it, I take the pin off. So this is primarily the stitch that I'm going to do because I like it, it's fun, and I can just choose the color because I have several colors. But then I thought, well, I'll do, I think this is the feather stitch, fly stitch. Looks like an amoeba, doesn't it? It's just so funky. And then a different thread. So these are kind of like when I went to a friend's house and I was looking at all her Civil War fabrics. I'm like, these are strangely ugly and attractive. And that's what the Civil War prints are. And now I adore them. So these are strangely ugly and attractive, but I like the dark ones. So I just got to show it to you again because it's just wild. It's wild, and I'll show you when I get this done. Unless it drives me so crazy, I may just have to throw it away. I don't think so. But look at this. I was just trying all different stitches, and I just move all over the place. It just depends on what I want to stitch. But what was I going to tell you about this? Oh, it must be the thread. So tune back later because it's just like I love stitching on this. But I was going to do all different kinds of the slow stitches because Jeri Bellini, and forgive me if I keep calling her Benelli, But Jeri Bellini has something called a dot a day, and I really want to do that, but I need to finish up projects. So I thought this is kind of a dot appeal a day, but she shows all different stitching. So I wanted to try that, but I was getting stressed at thinking, which stitch do I want to do? And I thought, just stitch, just chill out and stitch. So I have the threads. So last year, I went to, we live in Montrose, Colorado now, and there's a quilt show called Black Canyon Quilt Show. So I went last year, and there was a teacher, and she did kind of modern-y stuff, but there was a quilt, she was talking about quilting, and she had hand quilted this quilt, and I'll link her below because it was very interesting. Like if you go on her web page, it's the one with daisies. It has daisies, and then if you look at the binding and enlarge that, it had, I asked her about it in the class, and she was like, I'm so glad somebody noticed that, because she had to keep trying different things to work. But instead of straight stitch, it was, she called it like pickup sticks, where she had just drawn a bunch of random lines that crossed over each other, and they would be like Morse code, she said. So the running stitch, and then not an X. So the X is what I did in that quilt. The yellow quilt. My brain, see, 51 minutes, my brain is done. But I still have way too much stuff to show you, so I'm not pushing stop. But anyway, if you look at that close, French knot. So she would do the straight stitch, French knot, straight stitch, two French knots. So that's kind of what I was doing for around those orange peels. And I had always planned on doing that. And then here, I got to show you. So one thing I learned, when you get a quilt ready to do the top, I have always heard, just do, the neighbors have the lawn mowing, just do the binding at the same time, because especially if you don't do it for years later and you don't have the fabric you want, you're gonna have to go get fabric. So look at that. This is even, so because I just had jelly rolls, it's several different fabrics of jelly rolls. So I liked those colors. Oh, there's so much I wanted to tell you guys. So with that quilt, I have a friend that does modern. She's in the Modern Quilt Guild, and she loves doing modern quilts. And so I sent her a picture, and I'm like, hey, you're not gonna believe what I'm working on. And I sent her that picture. She was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And I said, so what do you think? I've got all these jelly rolls. What if I do, I had that pink laid out around it. And I said, what about the pink and then a white border and then prairie braid border with a Kaffe Fassette? And I thought that would be gorgeous. And she's like, hey, since it's kind of a modern quilt, modern quilts don't usually have borders. So she said, I know it will be very hard for you, but think about not doing a border. And I'm like, I text her back, and I'm like, what the heck? That would be like running around naked. And she texts back, and she said, it's kind of your style. We joke around about it. I've never done it. My brother did it when we were kids. He got in trouble, but anyway, so I'm calling that, instead of bright orange peel, I'm calling that quilt Almost Naked, because I just did one sedate border, but all those strips, that's why I did it on the back. But check this out, guys. I've had these threads for a year because I knew I had already done those peels. And so I bought a whole box of threads. Aren't those amazing? So you people that do brights, you're like, well, of course they are. Of course they are. But for me, think about Bonnie. Think about dark, 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 dark. Those colors are so fun. So the pink one is my favorite. So isn't that cool? Now, I've had questions about the pearl cotton that I have shown, because I generally do Valdani, and I use the size 12. And I'm going to share, hopefully, I'm going to get to the point where I share with you the different threads, different sizes, that kind of stuff. Well, this is, I don't even know what this is Wonderfill. So this is Wonderfill, and it's the spaghetti line, and that I can't remember what her name is, but that designer has all these collections, and I bought 2 of her collections, darker and lighter. I have these collections, but this is very thin. So this is more, um, this is more like a size 12 DMC, and maybe this does say, so size 12 Valdani is a little bit thicker than the size 12 DMC. Yeah, this says 12 weight, so 12 weight, probably different than size 12, but this is 12 weight Egyptian cotton, and it's double fired, so there's like no lint. And this designer that I'll link down below, anyway, she was in love with this, and she does a lot of hand stitching, and this is what she uses, and you can even use it in your machine. I've not tried, but I have so much thread, I just may do that. But this is so I can use this. I usually don't like noises, but this is so I can do this and take this with me wherever I go, because sometimes we'll go like to a local river and I'll just sit and stitch. But a lot of questions about my needles. So I was gonna say I'll talk about that later. I may never. Every time I talk about needles, but that's like the big question, and not everybody wants to watch the whole video. So this is my favorite needle, Peacemaker's brand, and it's the size, it's assorted, so size 5'10", and you get like 18 needles, I think it says. So and they also sell separate, like they sell 7, 8, and 9. So, but I am finding, I think it's the size 6 that I like the best generally for my size 12 Valdani, but they don't sell that separate. So you can get this, so you can buy this from Pacemakers, but also I get a lot of cross stitch from 123 Stitch. They're now doing fabric, and I just made an order from there because I needed a foot. And anyway, I'm not even going to probably talk about that. I'll talk about that in a couple weeks. But anyway, this I ordered another pack from them, but on Amazon I got this. So I'm hoping, because they say too, so this is the size 5 to 10 embroidery needle. So embroidery needles have a sharp tip, whereas when you do cross stitch, it's a tapestry needle and it is not a sharp tip because of the process that you need to do. So sharp tip, but I'm finding, like, even though this was the needle that I had, this is really kind of too big of a needle. So really I need to choose a smaller needle because I can get this thread through a smaller needle's eye, and I can do even littler stitches. So that's my thing. I make my own lip balm. I always have a lip balm, a thing for the pins to put in, a thing of needles, and these are the things that I put on my fingertip. I put it on my driving fingertip. They're from Colonial, but they're awesome. They're just suede, and you can keep reusing them and reusing them until they lose their stick and they get so filthy. But that's how I do my travel, and or just being able to take it out in the backyard and stitch on it. So wasn't that shocking, guys? But kind of fun. Now, when we were at the cabin last, it was so incredibly hot. We were there 4th of July, and we stayed for 2 weeks, and it was bittersweet. Every time we're there, we're spending time with our neighbors, and when we're saying this may be the last time you see us. So it's anyway, I got some stitching done. So this one is almost, I still have to do that little missing piece, almost all the way done with this. And I've talked about this on the last 2 videos, but as far as the pattern and everything, but almost all done. So that one's fun. That was, I had on my Willow Woods Quilt Guild, and I got to go to my Quilt Guild again. I surprised everybody. When I was there in July, I went to the Quilt Guild, and that's where I'm on a UFO challenge, and I have 6 on the list that I did in January, I think, and that's number 3 that I'll get finished, and so I still have 3 more UFOs to go. I don't want to stress you guys out, so let's talk slow. Now, I wanted to share with you how I organize. So I've had a lot of questions on how I pick out my fabrics. And I group my fabrics together. I have, when I'll show you, my amazing fabric storage closet, but I group fabrics together. And then I've also shared about how I am choosing to be more mindful with my purchasing. And even though something may attract me, a fabric may attract me, if it's not in my usual line of things that I do, either I would buy a kit so I don't have to get tons of fabric, or I just won't buy it in the future. And that's what I'm learning is I'll think, oh, that's so fun. But it's like, if it's not in my, I just probably won't make it. So this is where I have all my brights are confined to this spot. So I still have, I don't like the dot ones, but look at, I still have all these. So I will probably make a log cabin or something, a log cabin quilt or something bright and fun, because that one, see, is that one gorgeous? Anyway, this one, I think it's very old-fashioned looking too. So that one's kind of fun, but one of my other classes that I took, and this helps me. So this helps me stay where if I want to make a bright now, I've got all mine together. And generally now this is relegated to the attic, which is just a storage, very enclosed storage space right above the ceiling. So if I have too much fabric, it'll break the ceiling. No, it's really beefed up very well. So these are my brights. Now I wanted to show you, because I can do brights, it doesn't mean I want to. This was another class that I took. So this lady was showing us, just a lawnmower. This lady was showing us how to do wonky blocks. And it was kind of fun, but it was kind of stressful too, because it wasn't my norm, but it was really fun. She showed us just the concept of how to make wonky blocks. And because I'm so wonky, they're wonky, but I did this years ago and I still haven't finished it. And she was selling her hand-dyed fabric, which is beautiful, but again, I bought it and it's like, I'm not going to use these in anything else. So I will figure out what I'm going to do with this. And I do want to hand stitch on it because I've got all those fun threads. That one didn't work very well. Neither did that one. Anyway, they're fun, but not always my thing. But that's kind of how it helps to have fabrics that go together, stored together, so that when you pull a project out, you can really choose things. Okay, that was good. That was good. I want to have one more project I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you some answering different questions. And some of you may think, your hair was longer in the last video. And did you go to a hairstylist? No, I didn't. I just went in the bathroom and I whacked it away myself. I have an appointment with a hairstylist next month. But I figured out, I just whack. I did like 4 whacks across there. So for those of you people that want to save money so you have more fabric money and less hairstyle money, go gray and just whack across. But I wanted it to have a curl. And so then I got these scissors and I just cut up into it when it was wet. I did that and just cut up into that. It's unique. It's unique, but it's like, if I keep moving a lot, nobody's going to notice that it's all kind of funky. And then you know what else I do? Sometimes I'll just do this, where I'll see, oh, that hair is just bugging me. So what do? You just trim it just like that. See, all kinds of tips and tricks on all things to do. So, an hour into this and I'm losing it. But we'll find it. Okay, so this I also got on 1 2 3 Stitch. This is dime store Schnipples, and it can be done in a dark and a light. 2 charm packs and the cream colors. So, but what really helped was this charm pack, which I had gotten at a raffle. It had mostly mediums and darks, so for me it worked, and then I just chose lighter colors for the centers. But I showed this before, but I have it where I wanted to talk a little bit more because I always want to try to inspire you guys to just try the hand quilting. Don't overthink it. Maybe get a smaller project and just do it. Like cutting your hair. Oh well, we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I've been marking this. So some of them you can't see, but I can see. And then, so I was doing that this morning because I thought we need to get this on, because cross stitching, when I watch TV with my husband in the front room and I'm cross stitching, I have this amazing light, but it blinds him and he can't see anything. So we'll be watching a movie and I'll turn that on and he's like, I'm out of here. So if I want to watch a show with him, I can use my little Auditioning light and I can do the hand quilting. So that's what I want to do. So why am I showing you that? Let's show you. So how do I figure out how I'm going to quilt this? So I just try to figure out a design. What do I want to bring out? What do I want not to bring out? I was really into circles for a while, but this is a very regimented quilt, so I don't want to do the circles. So I was trying to play around with, I would stitch this, but I could stitch, so the seam allowance, I ironed it to the dark side and to the dark side. No, the way I did this, okay, whatever I did, it was a couple months ago. So I could stitch here, which is, I don't quite stitch in the ditch, but the seam allowance is over here and over here. So that would make a nice line, but this was ironed, the seam allowance is under here. So when you're stitching, that's like 4 layers of fabric and it doesn't lay the same. So I thought, well, I got to figure out something different. So I figured out, I was just figuring it out. This is kind of a weird quilt for me because it's just a different quilt and how I'm going to quilt it. Let me just suffice it to say that. So if you guys are tired of listening to me and you've done it for an hour, can you imagine? I had to listen to me and try to talk and stay intelligent. I can generally handle 10 minutes of intelligent a day. So this is already an hour and I got to keep it up. So these are my stencils. I've got lots of stencils because I have my mom's and mine, but I try to stay, so see, they're kind of all in the same family or design element. So we've got a square and ovals. We've got ovals. We've got square and ovals. So this one I've used a lot. I like this one. This one I haven't used a lot, but it was really quick and easy. This one, I don't usually do something that narrow, but this one I did. So you can see, I was just trying to think, how can I do something that makes sense where I'm stopping? Because this is why this one was kind of weird, because it has this sashing that's pieced. So I want to quilt that, but each block is separated by the sashing. I don't generally do that. And so I had to have, how am I going to quilt this that ends right here, doesn't continue on, and makes sense with then this continuing? And that's how I figured, is that I would do these ovals continuously there and then start here and go down. That design is its own thing. And then I may do this design right here, or I make it fancy and do the wider one. I haven't decided. But that's the kind of thing, is like in the evening, I've shared, like in the evening I'm tired, I don't want to think, I want to pick something up and all the pieces together and all my colors chosen in the box and just sit and stitch. And that's what I want to do. So this morning when I was bright and shiny and had my coffee, I was working on this and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I've got that figured out. But then the next thing is, I've got so many threads. What thread do I want to use? And generally I'm looking at what do I want the thread to really show up, Or I'm going to leave these on because I'm going to show you some colors. Do I want the thread to really show up, or do I want the thread to recede in the background? Do I want to use several different colors of thread? So these are mediums and darks, and there's some really dark and then the medium. So what I like to choose, where is the thread that I chose? Did it roll on the floor? Oh, good grief. I had this special to show you guys. Oh, yes. It is on the floor. I was like, I've got to show my friends. So look at the colors. So there you can see. So this is the Valdani size 12, and they vary. They vary a lot. So even though this is M90 size 12, if you ordered it, it may come very different color. These are the tones in this quilt. So I wanted to make sure, but it's light enough that it's going to show up here, dark enough that it's going to show up here. So that's what I'll do, is I'll just I had a whole bunch of threads out. I just get my thread, and I have it on a flat surface, not lying across me like this. And then I'll put it across there, and I'll see, is that going to show up? See if I get it close. Is that going to show up on the darks as well as the lights? And is it going to make sense? Like, will it be like, why did she use that color? So like you can see, as I'm pulling it up, it's changing color, but it still shows up on that thread. On the thread. My word. Should I go make coffee? I don't know how to pause you and go do that, but I should have some coffee. But not if I want to talk slow. Oh, we don't want the cleavage. Not attractive. Okay. So this, I think, is going to be the winner. And I think I'm going to use I think I'm going to use this for the whole shebang. Even on the border, I may use that. But I had all these threads that I was auditioning. And I have done this on several quilts, and it's lovely. I would encourage everyone to get this. M60. It does not always look the same. Sometimes it's lighter. I had one that was darker that I really liked that the best. But I had all these threads that I was auditioning, and even that kind of purpley one. And then trying to see, do I want more of a solid? And I think that one was the winner. Now, so enough on that. And we'll see. So hopefully next time I get back to you, it'll be done. I need to put that so I don't lose that. So that was Dime Store. So Dime Store is this pattern. And you can make it bigger. I think it was fun to have a small one. What I'll do with that, I don't know. I don't know. Let me gather my thoughts. That's why I usually take a drink. Gather my thoughts. When we were at the cabin, I had done my last video right before we left, and I have all kinds of stuff out, and I was like having to think, okay, so what things am I going to need for the cabin? And you know, I thought I had, and I'm a double checker, double check. Well, I got up to the cabin 2 whole weeks ahead of me, and I didn't have the thread. I didn't have the P9 thread to do the fall quilt. And I had done all the applique on our last trip there. And I was going to do the whole quilting quilt on my time there. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go all the way down to, there is a store I could have gone that had it in stock, but it was like 2 hours with traffic. And I was like, no, we hardly left the mountain. So I thought, okay, I'll order it online, and I could send it, like, nobody could find our cabin for delivery. So I have it sent to a neighbor. And so I thought, what am I going to do? So I had, so I found something. So it was a set of Valdanis. So this would be great for someone that wants to try it, that does my colors. This was a Kim Diehl. So a lot of designers will choose collections. So this is a Kim Diehl. I don't even know if you can see that. So maybe you can see that, but I'll tell you what it is if you can't. So it's the Pearl Cotton size 12, Essential Neutrals by Kim Diehl. And I was able to get these for like $27, the whole set. because generally in sets, you should be able to get it cheaper. Well, it was the P9. I think I've already put it away. So it's just the beautiful brown. So it's the one I wanted. And then I thought, even if I have these colors already, these are totally my colors. I'm not using the lights as much anymore, but for needle punch or punch needle, those definitely I would use, but generally I'm using these darker colors. So this might be a very fun way, but size 12, like this one's really cool. So a lot of variegation, but a nice little collection. Hopefully you could get it at a good price if that's what you want. But I like the size 12. Some people use size 8 because that's what, like if you do wool applique and follow Lisa Bongine, she uses pearl size 8. I find that too thick for what I prefer for hand quilting. I was answering comments and someone said, could I try size 8? It's like, yeah, give it a try. You may like that even more because you're comfortable with it. The stitching will just show up more. You may not be able to load as many stitches on. And again, it's just the running stitch. And I keep saying, I'm never gonna show how I stitch. Maybe I will. But this we need to close out, but I need to answer a few questions. So questions on, do I wash my quilts? Yes, very carefully and rarely. I like them stiff. I don't like them all soft. I like them firmer generally. So like when you wash them, they should get softer, but it kind of bunches up a bit. And some people like that. I have a friend that after she hand quilts it, she throws it right in the wash in the dryer to get it to shrink. I generally don't. I use generally 7th generation laundry soap. I had Orvis, or it's actually a horse mane shampoo that my sister gives to me because she has a horse, but I can't find it. I moved and I can't find it now. But I use 7th generation laundry soap, which is a very mild, you want very mild laundry soap, not Tide, not any of that stuff because it's gonna eat through your quilt. But there is something toxic that I use. I usually don't use anything with an artificial fragrance. Drives me crazy and it's not good for you. Think hormone disruptors, artificial fragrances. But this does, I had this from our last house, so this is how I did it because I can't stand the smell of these things. They give me headache. But they are Shout color catchers, so they're white. I put in, like when I washed that star flannel, I put in, because it was smaller, I put in 3. They started out white, and this is, I wanted to show you, I saved them. This is what happens. So it's to catch the color that can bleed out, because I do not pre-wash my fabrics before I make my quilts. When I quilt, I use quilt quality quilt. I don't buy my fabric. This is what Bonnie does. I do not buy my quilt fabric at Hobby Lobby, Joann's, any of those less expensive places. I buy the expensive stuff, but I buy what's called quilt quality, which is from the independent quilt stores, but it's, yeah, it's getting really expensive. So that's why I like buying sale stuff, and that's why I treasure my collection. That scared me. Riley, it scared my friends too. Anyway, Fat Quarter Shop, one of my favorite places. So anyway, the colors will bleed a little bit the first couple times you wash them. So I put these in. Now, would it have all just washed away in the water? Maybe, but I had a flannel quilt that I had made, a rag quilt. It was like king size or queen size. And the dark blues bled a little bit onto the tan fabrics. It's so wild, it doesn't really show, but these are what I use. So that's the story on that. That's what I use, and now I can throw those away. Then, oh my gosh, an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. In for a penny, in for a pound. Okay, I showed this quilt. I don't know if you can see. I showed this quilt. I think I'm pulling it because it's on the bed and there's stuff on top of it. Maybe in the last 1 or 2 videos that I did, and people were asking where could they get that. So it is in the book Simple Appeal. I did not get that out of the book. It was in a magazine, a Fons and Porter magazine. I have it in my notebook, so I'll put that in the show notes. It was in an old Fons and Porter magazine. And then you can also go, I think, on Quilt Digest and just buy the individual for like $7.99. I think you can buy that. So I'll put that in the drop down notes on this one. But I found this for $6.50. This was the one I got. I think it was Abe or Thrift Books, but it was free shipping. $6.50. I got this whole book because this pattern is in a magazine, and I used to get all the magazines, or my mom or my sister did, and so I had all the patterns. But I just thought there are other patterns in here. Oh, that was the one, so I could actually show it to you. There are other patterns in here that I would want to make, but this is it. This one is a throw, whereas I made a king size, and that my whole little story on that is in there. But anyway, Simple Appeal, you can get it used for inexpensive. So that answers that question. Then someone had a question about the pineapple blocks that I shared, asking, because I had showed, maybe that was on my last video, on how, and I was going to tell you the video number, but I've done that before and I'm always wrong because I don't remember. So I showed several. I love the pineapple block. So this is one that I did a lot when I was at cabin, little tiny cabin, made little tiny blocks, and I had boxes of scraps that I used this for. So I love these, and I have several pads of these, because if you're making a good size quilt, you go through a lot. But someone asked, when you put those together, the blocks together, do the seams nest? No, they don't. And that's kind of a challenge, because then when you get, and I have this quilt upstairs, so I'm not going to grab it. But if you can imagine, you're folding over, so the seam allowances are always they're not open. So when you do paper piecing, I don't even think you can have the option of having those seams open. So if you can imagine, if this is the light and this is, these are the two blocks, you're putting them together. So those seams, like if you have these seams, they're not always going to be perfect. They're not going to line up perfect, even if you try. I do it the best I can, and I wish I had one here to show you, but basically you're doing one block to the next, and I leave the paper on. So those seams, like if there's a seam folded up and a seam folded up, then there's like 8 layers of fabric that you're sewing together. So that's why it kind of helps to have the paper on, and I pin very carefully, sew very slowly, but it's not perfect, but it's such a wild block that it really doesn't show. And I have looked close at a lot of people's, like, because I do tons of Pinterest, I'll look at people's blocks that have like 2 blocks together, and it's like, there's not perfect either, and you don't even care because they're so cool, and the hand quilting really helps. So that was kind of an answer on that. Then to get back to, here's my notebook with all the notes I was going to talk about. Who knows how, oh, and Anita, you asked about batting, and that's coming up. So someone said they wanted to do the log cabin block, and what are some places that you could look for. So this was just, I bought this used as well, but this is a log cabin notebook. And then I was looking at it, and it's like, well, that's not the log cabin block. There's a log cabin family of blocks. So, and now I can look at my notes. You've got the traditional log cabin. You've got the courthouse steps. This is courthouse steps. Now, and I have to look at, like, how is this person, how are they doing this? So this is the center of the block. And then the courthouse is where on either end, that's the same size of strip. This is the same size of strip. So you're doing it one side and another, one side and another. Whereas with the log cabin, look, and I have this book. See, and I shared this quilt, like the quilt that I shared in my last video, it's like this exactly. When you do the log cabin, you do the center, then you do this block, then you do this, then this, then this, and you're working around, and you're always adding, it's always a strip a little bit longer, but there's so many variations. So just search free log cabin block, free log cabin blocks. And you'll find so much. But this is a great book. I have all three of these, Joe's Little Favorites. But look at this one. So this has a log cabin. So this is the log cabin. So it has the square center, and you can do wonky, and that's the wonky is you just cut that piece wonky and then keep adding on, and you're going to get wonky. Like me, you're going to be wonky just like me. So with this one, see, that was the first one. Then this got sewn to that. Then this got sewn to that. And then this to that and that to that. So you're just working around. Whereas this is this one. Let's see where you can see. Where can you see the seam? Like this. This is the courthouse. So that started, that piece was added to that, then that was added, then that was added, then that was added. So courthouse steps, there'll be tons of videos with people way more knowledgeable and patient than me to be able to teach you. Is this book worth it? I don't know. I just bought it because my mom had it. And at that point, I was like so into log cabin blocks, and now I have so many different patterns. Anyway, let's not get in the weeds with that one. Now the pineapple block. So the pineapple block is similar in a sense to the log cabin, but it basically has to do with you're just adding strips. I love those kind of blocks. Those are some of my favorites, as well as half square and quarter square triangles. Those I like. I like that kind of thought. Let's go, we got to wrap this up. Let's go to the batting. So Anita, you had asked about batting. So, because you noticed that my quilts were thinner, that the batting was thinner because they folded up nicer. That's why I started using a different batting. When I was new as a quilter, I got Warm and Natural. It was less expensive. Everything was less expensive at the time. It's thicker, it's warmer, it's cotton. I will never, ever, ever sew with polyester again. It works its way through, and I am totally redoing a king size quilt that was hand quilted that it's coming through on. I hate polyester. So with a passion, I hate polyester. So Warm and Natural cotton. This is thicker. So as you fold the quilts, usually you can see behind me quilts folded. I have some down there that you probably can't see. They're thicker. They take up more space. It's nice, warm winter ones. That's what this quilt on the bed was. And I told my sob story about how it was so heavy. But I had this, I just saved scraps, and that's what I used for my wall hanging. But for that bright one, it was white, which generally I don't do. So I wanted to make sure I used a white batting. So I did that, but I can tell as I'm stitching, it's like, this is the thicker. I bought this. I don't think I've used this. This is my favorite brand, Quilter's Dream. Now, Warm and Natural is a good batting. It's just thicker. And I have lots of quilts done with that. So I want some thinner ones because I have so many quilts that I'm folding and putting up places. And I layer quilts on me. So winter nights, I could end up with 4 quilts on top of me. But because I have lots of quilts. So Quilter's Dream is the fabric, the quilts, the batting that I buy now. I bought this to try it, and I bought a small one, so it was less expensive, but I haven't used it yet. I've just had people say bamboo is really great. This is my go-to now. So Quilter's Dream cotton, and then this is the throw size, but this is the style Request. Now Request is the thinnest loft, so it's the thinnest batting. So this, you can see, this is a throw, and you can see how small this package is. Nice and thin, hand quilts easy, folds up easy. So this is my go-to. Now, this is probably similar to Warm and Natural. This one is a queen size. I'm like, why did I buy this? And then I looked in my notes. I am going to redo that polyester nightmare, and I'm going to undo it because I don't have a king size bed anymore. We've got queen size. So I'm going to undo it a little bit, but I bought this one so I have a thicker batting to have on that, or the other one was out of stock and I thought I was going to get it done right away. That was a joke. So Quilter's Dream, my favorite. This is the Select, thicker. So hopefully that answers all the questions that I had. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait till the next one. Okay, wow, probably the longest video that I've made. So, anyway, let's do that so you don't see that. Okay, anyway. Thank you for watching. I appreciate so many people that have joined into my stitching family and want to be a part of my crazy life, and or they've got crazy and they're like, they say, you think just like me. I'm so glad we crazies have to stick together. And I just love doing these videos, and I appreciate that people can stay with me or not and leave. And it was so funny because one comment, I take negative comments off because it's like, it's my channel, I can get rid of anything I want to. And someone left a comment, it's like, so instead of chat. And I thought, just don't watch me then. Just don't watch me. So anyway, now I want to share, I'm going to refer back to something I did. So this is what I call the good stuff, where I share about my faith and my crazy and how my Jesus is helping me stay functional, and how I'm doing life. And at the end of, I think it was the last video, it was right before we were going to the cabin, and I had referred to some paperwork that a friend had given me, and I couldn't find it. That's because it was in kitchen. That was very good. And I said it was from Moms in Touch, but it was actually Moms in Prayer. Come to find out, Moms in Prayer used to be Moms in Touch because I had a book and I knew of them earlier. But Moms in Prayer, so I had talked about, they have their website, Moms in Prayer has, so now I have it. So I found where this is, but see, it has Bible verses, and then it has blanks where you put in somebody's name, whether yourself, your kids, a friend, spouse, whatever, somebody's name, and you're praying God's word back to God, and you're praying for them. And I was trying to explain where I found it, but it was in, if you look under the tab, and I'll try to link this, but if you go to Moms in Prayer and you look under resources, it's under the Leader's Guide, and this was page 17. So that was the thing. It was page 17 of the Leader's Guide, but it was actually page 14 and 15 printed page. So it was confusing all around, and especially for me, as tired as I am. But praying the scripture for your kids is amazing, and I know a lot of you guys do that as well. What's the purpose? Somebody may ask that maybe doesn't even pray. You're looking to God and you're saying, you are bigger and stronger and amazing, and I am not. I can't. I need help. And so that's your submission to God and saying, I need help for this situation. As a child, I submitted to God, and through Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ is my Savior. And I'm like, I cannot get myself to heaven. I am not good enough. Nobody's good enough to get to heaven. God is a holy God, and it has to have perfection. So he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to come as a baby. That's how we celebrate Christmas, and live a perfect life and die. He gave his life at Calvary on the cross as a sacrifice for our sins. And even he, the night before in Gethsemane, went to the garden and asked God, if there's any other way, can you take this cup from me? Because he knew the pain and the torture and the separation from God for a moment, that it was going to be for him to sacrifice. And he said, not my will, but yours be done. And that is what submission is you could take another way out, but you choose because you know the best route. And that's where I know my God is a big God, and he can handle the challenges that I cannot. I have not shared this on these videos before because it's so tender, but I just started crying, so I thought I may as well share it. My husband and I are parents of two prodigals, and we have two children. So I printed out these Hope for Parents of Prodigals. So verses and information that we can pray for our children to come back to the saving grace of Jesus Christ and live the way that he would want them to live. And so that is, there's so many resources of hope that I have. And I love my children, but I would like for them to make different choices. So that is my prayer for them. And I know that there's a lot of other parents out there like me, and these resources can help. So those are great resources. But I need to close this out. So thank you guys so much for being a part of my life. And whether I cry or laugh or joke around or get serious, I just thank you for watching and for being a part of this, and especially even though these are so long, just that this is the way that I can do it. It takes so much, like I said, for me just to be able to make the time, the mental time, and the framework for me to be able to do this. And then I have to clean up afterwards and try to put as much as I can in the show notes, and it just works for me in the midst of all my challenges. That's how I can do this. And I thank you for those of you who want to be a part of this with me, whether you just watch little bits of my videos or all of it, and whether people are just watching the quilt portion and then leaving before I talk about my faith, or those of you that stay for the whole thing, or maybe just come for the faith part at the end. But life is challenging, but we can choose joy. And that's what, as I was cleaning, I found this neat thing. I had a calendar, and this was actually the artist. I know the artist, and I'm hoping to get one of her calendars next year. But a friend of mine and the artist gave me this when we moved in, and the calendar, and it had this part in it. It said, "We cannot cure the world of sorrow, but we can choose to live in joy." And it was just a quote by Joseph Campbell. And it's just, joy is a choice. So we can choose to live in chaos, which is why I want to clean my room, because I don't want to choose to live in chaos. Or we can choose to live in a cleaner environment. We can choose to live where we're dwelling on our problems all the time. Or we can choose to do things that bring us joy and comfort and calmness, and pray to a God that is amazing and omnipotent, and he has a plan for all of us. And that's where I want my children to live, within that plan, because I know it is best for them. So anyway, thank you guys for sharing in this journey with me. And I pray that you would choose joy nevertheless. And I hope to visit with you soon. Bye-bye.